Morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global Nimble community. This is John Farrar, CEO of Nimble, and this is a series of webinars that we pre we prepare to inspire and educate our global community, because I think that you need to do more than build a fishing pole. You need to teach people how to fish, and we love to find people that resonate with us. And Lisa, you are definitely somebody who resonates with us, and specifically me. So welcome, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here with you, John. And likewise, I follow you because I'm always interested in what you're up to.
Awesome. So let's go to your intro slide. What I love about what you do is you teach people how to communicate from a value perspective. And I think that so many marketers and salespeople don't really understand how to properly communicate in making their buyers the hero of the journey. And what you do in helping people to translate that into B2B strategy and execution has just been really impressive, especially the people and the companies that you do it with. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for those that don't know me, I'm John Farrar, CEO of Nimble. And I do what I do because I think that people power people, that relationships are key to your life success. And I'm a relationship guy, and I build tools for relationships. And with that, let's go to the next slide. I think we're going to talk about that. We have upcoming webinars. We do these webinars regularly to educate you. We do them with thought leaders like Lisa. We also do them with our team, and we do intros on how to use Nimble better, smarter, faster. So go to nimble.com company webinars to sign up for those. And before we get to the agenda, I just want to remind everybody that we love questions. We will be answering questions in the background and compiling them for a Q&A at the end. So please, please, please use the question box to ask questions. And with that, Lisa, please take us away.
Sure. So for those of you that know me, and I recognize a few names on the list of people, I'm pretty obsessed when it comes to value props. And in the current situation and environment we're in now, there's been a big question mark in what direction to go and what to do. So I want to walk you through how to get clear on what offerings make sense right now, because I believe value props have to be relevant anyway. But if you're not as relevant as you could be, believe you me, you really need to get relevant now. How to identify the right language that will ensure attention and engage your buyers. You want to make sure that if you're doing a pivot, whether it's messaging or messaging plus, and I'll talk more about that, that it's not an outlier and doesn't fit into your overall brand message. How do you get started and how do you launch? And then just some quick tips on how to use it kind of quickly and efficiently and daily, really. So I have a philosophy about value props. I believe at the core of a strong value prop is if you think about it as a mirror. Your buyers look into that mirror, they better see themselves. That's what relevance is all about. There's lots of value prop definitions, but I think that the core of a good one is that it's a buyer-focused description of value that demonstrates your knowledge about the customer's experience or challenge, not your knowledge about your own product and service, because that's a given. So value props that are very product service featured, that usually happens because it's the easiest thing to do, and B, that's where we think it's supposed to be. Meanwhile, our buyers, they're not so interested in that. What they want to see is themselves. So in this particular period of time, and I've been working with a number of companies right now on how to kind of pivot their value prop to be more relevant, you're probably in one of three boxes. One, you have an offer or a set of offerings that are still relevant given what's going around, but your message is probably not as relevant as it could be. So you maybe need just to pivot the messaging. That could be one state. The other state is, I don't know if my offer is all that relevant right now, or maybe it's just not a priority because everybody's priorities have changed. Maybe I need to fashion a pivot offering, plus I need to message it. Or you could be in this third box, which is, you know what, I think my offer's fine, but if I were honest, my messaging's always been really weak. And it's really gonna get weaker given where we are. So really where I am is I need to really just completely message over, right? Full messaging upgrade. You're in one of those boxes, typically, most people that I've worked with, okay? And so the first thing is to say, which of these am I? Because that's gonna dictate what you do next, okay? And the next thing that you're gonna do is figure out, okay, if I'm doing a pivot, what's in it? What am I kind of figuring out here? You're first going to decide, am I using an existing offer? And by the way, narrow in. Don't offer everything you've got. If you've got multiple products and services, everybody has the attention span of less than a gnat now, okay? And so what's the most relevant to what's happening now? Do I have an existing offer that fits, or do I have to craft something new or cobble together something new? Can I right size? Okay, here's an existing offer, but nobody's going to spend that kind of money for it right now. How do I right size that, pull it into something more manageable that will be helpful, right? And you really want to think about the buying audience that you're going after. What's the most helpful thing? How does my current offering help them in a way that's relevant now, okay? Or can I pull a hybrid? Well, maybe I can pull a couple of things we have together into some kind of a hybrid offer, or maybe I can come up with a brand new idea, and a completely new offer, okay? Let me just give you a very personal, real example. I came up with kind of a hybrid myself, coming up with an offering that's called the value proposition pivot. And I actually did it to help other people. It took me a while to figure out, oh, wait a minute, this is an offering, you know? So you never know where that idea is going to come from. But what you want to do is, whether it's existing or hybrid or new, you need to get super clear in what's in the offer, and by the way, what's not. Because pricing is an issue right now, right? People's budgets, people are being laid off, you know, all of that. So you got to be really clear, not only what's in it, but what's not. I've talked with companies where it's like, you know, we can't discount this offer. I said, well, of course, if you give all the bells and whistles with it, of course you can't discount it, because you're not going to be able to raise it later. That's really hard. What you need to do is take some things off the table. What does that look like? And then that gives you an opportunity to offer some versions at different price points. So people like choices. I never want to put somebody into a box where they have to say yes or no to my offer. I want to give them some choices, which puts them in consideration mode. So I could take my pivot offer and, you know, I could have a low end version of it with less stuff in it at a lower price point, one in the middle with more, and then I could have the Cadillac version with everything, and let people choose. And then I can have a conversation about the value of each, or the pros and cons of each, and then I get into more of a sales conversation, as opposed to feeling like I'm in a situation where if I don't cut my price, I'm in trouble, okay? And I need to define it. What features are included in the base offering? So what I'm going to do is come up with, what's the foundational offer that I really want to get, right? So mine is kind of in the middle, right? So what's in there? And then I look at and strip down or add in for version 2 and version 3, right? So really kind of zero in on where you really want to be. And think about, what benefits does this have from the buyer point of view right now, okay? If you are fashioned an offer that's relevant, you've got to think about the benefits that are relevant, that play into that. And I would suggest that you take a step further and you look at surrounding value. And by that, I mean, what other things can we do to sweeten this opportunity, right? Maybe my financing terms could change, right? I could add a longer payment period. Maybe I could offer different delivery options. Maybe I can throw in some free training. Maybe I can think about the additional value that might be added to sweeten the pot. Totally important. And then make sure you have a low, medium, and high price to give them choice, and make sure that your benefits and your features line up. Now, I'm just going to say this. You should be doing this anyway. But the reality is that doesn't always happen. okay? And so we really want to kind of make it as targeted and as relevant as possible. If you're not doing this already, this is going to be a stretch, and that's okay, right? Keep it simple, keep it to a single offering, and focus on that. If this is something you do regularly, then that gives you an opportunity to go really deep in terms of how relevant can we be. And I think those folks should be really looking at a hybrid or potentially a new offering that makes sense. I also think you should go narrow in on your audience, and that's going to help a lot to get to the right language. Okay, we are all marketing to lots of different people. I think you really ought to ask the question, what segment drives the majority of my business, the majority of my revenue? What is the industry and segment, and who are the decision makers there, right? And start there. Make your offer relatable to them. You can version if you need to, but the reality is you want to get this pivot offer out there and you want to test it. Now, even though, and I'm going to say this now, even though it feels like things are, there's a lot of talk about going back to work and business is starting again, and we're not done. We're not going to be done with the situation we're in for some time. So it's not too late at all. I think the pivot offers are going to have a place for some time. And so don't worry about just sitting back and waiting it out and then just relaunching everything that you have the exact same way. I would recommend against that. Pick your key audience, define it really tightly, what drives the most revenue, and focus on that. Then once you've identified that, I have a pivot offer, I know who I'm aiming it to, I always want to pick up the phone. What customers do I have in that segment that I can call and say, hey, what do you think? I always test. What do you think is going on right now? And what are some of the bigger current issues? How has this climate impacted you guys? Are you having new issues? Is it made some of your existing stuff worse? You want to get in at how do they feel about this? And I'm trying to get at not only the situation, I'm trying to get at language. What words do they use? I also go a level deeper and ask them, how is all of this affecting your customers, right? Because that's also a thing to think about when you're putting together a pivot. You're helping them, but can you reach past them to their customers to help them? That's really a key issue right now because we're all worried about our client base. And then try to kind of work through which of these needs that they've discussed are the most pressing and relevant. And how does my pivot offer? Does my pivot offer nail it? Do I have to make adjustments, or did I miss the boat and I have to go back to the drawing board and think through this up again? Right? I wouldn't just wing it without any kind of mini research here. And I'm not suggesting doing a lot. I would pick up the phone, talk to 3 or 4 of your customers in your selected segment and see if you can get at where they're at, how they're feeling, and how they talk about it. Obviously, I'm doing kind of from a pivot point of view, I'm kind of moving as fast as I can to get there. That's super, super important. So now I want to say, okay, so I know what and I know who. Now I've got to think about how I start to pull together a message for this. So I want you to go back to the mirror, right? The value prop is a mirror. Take those issues that you got from the buyer in their language, and I want you to turn them into a 2 or 3 sentence statement that kind of summarizes their current situation or challenge or issue, okay? I'm going to suggest that you don't start with beating the drum on COVID. To be quite honest, the COVID-19 messaging is already getting repetitive, and it's already been kind of done. There's a great, you should check this out. I was checking out some stuff on Ad Age a couple of days ago, and this is a fabulous bit of a video, the ad mashup, where this guy who puts together all these video mashups, his name is Microsoft Sam, put one on a mashup together of COVID ads, and it is unreal, and it's actually pretty funny. And every single one of them are basically the same, entirely different companies and industries. They start with the very serious piano music, and there's all kinds of different, very somber images, and They talk about in the current environment during this difficult time. The language is all the same. Don't go there at this point is what I'm saying to you, but check that out. There's a link for it. You want to make that 2 to 3 sentences as conversational as possible. And I want you to think of it as it's the front end of my value prop, and I'm going to use it to set up my offer statement so that there's a flow from identifying their challenge and issue in their language, and then you can attach your offering, your pivot offer to it. Let me just give you a couple of examples. There's lots of them. I've never been so interested in ads in my life lately because I've just been paying attention to messaging. I'm more interested in messaging that ties to a real thing that's helpful and is needed by the buyer audience that these companies are trying to go after. So Toyota and Hyundai, they actually relaunched their buyer protection program, which is really interesting because that was conceived in 2009 during the economic crisis. So they just brought that back, which I thought was A, smart, B, they didn't kind of, lean on kind of just messaging about the crisis and just saying we're here for you. They're actually offering something that has real value to their target audience. The next one's my favorite. Mask Breath. I died when I saw this. Hershey's Icebreaker Mints. They had a whole section on, do you have mask breath? It's real, right? Mint before you mask. I thought that was great pivot messaging. I really did, and it was fun. But it's a great way to take something and sort of do that messaging twist on it. And it's a real problem. Believe me, I started paying attention after that. McDonald's, really, we're still here. They took that we're still here message and they talked about the whole drive-through. So it's all about see you in the drive-through, right? As opposed to kind of doing the, the touchless pickup and all of that, which is messaging a lot of, restaurant industry people are using. They basically stuck to their core and just netted it out. Cottonelle did something that was interesting. I've seen lots of companies do, but interesting. Obviously there's an issue with production. So they talked, their message was about, increasing that, but they also talked about helping others, and they did a $1 million donation and started this whole thing, Share a Square, right? And so I thought that was an interesting combination of philanthropy, helping, and addressing a real issue, which is, God help me, I can't find any TP, right? One of my clients, Kosh Solutions, when you go to their website, boom, is your business ready for remote workforce? They're an entire IT services firm. And so, your first touch with them is, here's some real steps that you can take. And it's direct, it's helpful, and they're not making a pitch, but it's obvious there might be more to this than meets the eye, and I might need their help. So just some quick kind of examples to just sort of get you thinking a little bit. So then I want you to think about, okay, I've got my buyer objective statement, right? Or the issue, challenge, whatever. Now I've got to do my pivot statement, which is describing my pivot offering. And again, 3 sentences or less, okay? I want you to focus on outcomes, okay? What they get, what's the impact? I don't want to see any features and benefits in there. There's a time and a place to talk about that, but in the upper engagement of people, you want them to take a step forward, and that has to be about them. That has to be relevant to them. So your offer statement has to be very relevant to those issues that you talked about without going into a feature dive, because frankly, the value prop is the beginning of your conversation. Messaging that you use to engage people is the beginning of the conversation. It's not the whole conversation. So you don't want to stuff it with everything. Don't lead with how and features, right? You want to lead it with what. What do they get out of it? What is going to be the impact? And I want you, from the perspective of looking at it as a pivot, think about their current situation and what they're dealing with as a result of the times that we're in, okay? Get as specific there as you can get. So I want that offer statement not to be generic, not to have everything under the sun in it, right? Not every single capability you have, just the ones that are specific and relevant to where the buyers are right now. It should fit in to that buyer objective statement, that first 2 or 3 sentences, like 2 puzzle pieces going together, okay? And then now we're at the differentiation piece, hardest piece, because I think differentiation is really hard and it's one of the weakest areas of most of the messaging and value props I see, okay? Doesn't really matter if it's apples and oranges. Just tell me why. Why this offer, right? Classic question that doesn't always get answered. Well, why you? Why you today? Why this pivot offer? And why are you the person to do it for me? Are you the company to do it for me? And then why now? Okay, that's really important. Absolutely. But be careful. Don't go all me too. When I looked at that ad mashup that I saw on the Adweek page, I was just struck by these are major corporations and they're all doing exactly the same thing, using the same words, almost the same kind of ad. It was very striking. And the whole point of this is to do something different. So don't go down the me too path, okay? Make sure that when you message this and the differentiator is real, it's tangible and real and it's provable, okay? Don't just make kind of fluffy marketing statements. And I say that as a marketer and a salesperson because nobody buys them, okay? Nobody believes that. So it's got to be a real tangible thing. If you can come up with one of those that you can prove, you are way ahead of the game. Super important. You might even want to go a step further for your for this pivot offering, this pivot value prop. Is this pivot offering going to have a longer shelf life than this period of time? You might actually have an offering that could be around for a while, or that you could add to your portfolio. And if it does, you might want to have a tagline for it. Here's the thing with the tagline, okay? Super short. You got two options. Either one, it's evocative of the outcome or how your buyer audience might feel, or it's a very succinct, clear, short, 3 words or less description of the offering, of what it is. Go either way with that. In terms of an elevator pitch, and I'm someone who doesn't like them, I'm a marketer and seller who actually hates elevator pitches. I do, because a lot of people think a value prop is an elevator pitch, and it's not. You pull a good elevator pitch out of a strong value proposition that has some meat to it, okay? Most of them start with your own company. Don't. Start with the buyer. So your elevator pitch should have 1 sentence about the buyer and 1 sentence about the offer and 1 short sentence with your differentiator. Boom, boom, boom. That's an elevator pitch that has some legs in it, as opposed to, we do blah, blah, blah for XYZ, okay? Yeah, okay, that sounds like every other pitch known to man. What if your pitch started with your buyer? What if you held up your pitch and it was a mirror and they looked into it? So that's the thing. The other thing you want to think about is, how does this fit? Just so I haven't gone off the beaten trail with all of my other messaging, I have kind of an overarching proposition, my core message for my organization. And I usually have major propositions for each of the core areas of my business, whether that's, product, service, solution areas, or those might be industry areas. And then I usually have similar for my offers. You want to make sure my pivot doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, right? I want it to be individual and I want it to be original and unique, but I also want it to fit in the overarching, so I don't kind of rattle the rest of my value props and it doesn't make sense. Because if you pull something out and as a pivot offering and a pivot message, and it's totally irrelevant to the rest of your business, that's going to cause people to question, why would I go to them for this? That's kind of doesn't fit with what they do. So you want to make sure that there's a natural fit there. Okay, let me take a breath for a second. All right, so I pulled my pivot offer together in about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm working with probably 13 companies right now. I'm working on their pivots, and within 3 to 4 weeks, you should be able to have this nailed down in terms of getting ready to get it out there. You don't want to, this is not what you would put together for a standard product, service, or solution kind of launch. So you want to kind of go, okay, what's the best way to get there as quickly as I can? And to get real serious about, what do I need to launch this thing? And what do I need to prepare? And what are the logistics around it? And so I just did a quick and dirty checklist, okay? Whether I need to, have this be purchasable on right off of my website, or I need to orchestrate how I can get a conversation with them sooner rather than later. There's a number of assets that you want to pull together. Obviously, a kind of an offering sheet, obviously a landing page. I don't need to reinvent my website. Put together a quick landing page that can stand on its own for now to get this thing off the ground. And then work through what my email copy is going to be, what my cadence of touches is going to be. I'm on touch number 2 of a 9-touch cadence that I'm working on right now with my own pivot. And so you want to think through, do I need scripts? I need email scripts. I need telephone scripts. What's my call to actions that I'm going to sprinkle through that? And to make sure that I have all of the logistics pieces and get those prepped and ready to go. And then I can start to look at what my results are and to move from there. Definitely, I'm thinking about moving as swiftly as you can. So keep it as simple as you can. While these seem like really big lists, these aren't rocket science, even though I have a rocket lying there. So you want to think through, okay, what can I repurpose, right? This is one of the things that I look at. So what I did is I repurposed one of my standard sell sheets. I repurposed a landing page for another offering. I already had payment processor page, so I just added another offering. I repurposed a thank you page. I really thought through kind of what my outreach format and cadences are going to be. I have email templates. I genned up some new ones. Telephone scripts I wrote from scratch. I have a number of assets. I ended up creating a new call to action asset that I'm going to use. So that didn't take me that long. That took me like maybe, a week to pull that together. And then I had somebody whip up a landing page for me, which took us maybe 2 days, and you go from there. So it's like repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. What do you have that you can leverage and tweak so that you don't have to create from a blank sheet of paper, which is something that's one of my mantras is, you know what, if I don't have to create from a blank sheet of paper, I prefer not to. What can I extend? What can I version? What can I upgrade? That kind of a thing. So that's a good way to think about getting ready to launch. The other thing that I think makes sense is you've got to be really agile around getting to talk about this, right? Because you're starting with some form of an offering that you're talking about in a different way, whether it's a brand new offering or it's a hybrid of some of your things, or it's an existing offer with a whole new message. You've got to be able to not just use the kind of planned out marketing activities, but you also got to be able to engage daily, right? With the conversations, with the connections, with all of that you're having. So what I've done is taken my value prop pivot and I'm starting to feed it into, and I use Nimble, no surprise there. And I've been feeding chunks of it into sort of manageable sound bites that I am using in some of the emails that I'm using to communicate with people. Now, I'm obviously going to do more kind of formulated email campaigns, but here I'm going to actually embed them and create some email templates, some templated emails that use some of this messaging that I've created for my pivot to talk about my pivot in conversation with the people that I'm normally connecting with. I'm also segmenting that target audience. Remember I said go narrow and focus in on a specific audience? Well, I'm coming up with those lists within my instance of Nimble, and I'm going to start to do some conversational outreach that will be slightly different, a lot more personalized, and make it more kind of relevant even more in terms of, sharing some things I've seen. I had an idea, what do you think? That kind of a thing, but to be able to slowly unpack and start to converse about that pivot offer as I go along. And I obviously don't want to do that to everybody. I only want to do that to the audience that is the most relevant to me. And that's, less is more. I think that's totally something that we need to think about here. I am not advocating that you put together a pivot offering and messaging for it and then blast it at everyone. That completely takes the word relevant and throws it out the window. So what I want you to do is I want you to think through who and what is going to be most pertinent now. I'm going to take a breath. John, what do you think so far? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense?
Well, Lisa, one of the things I love about this is it helps us to better understand how to communicate with our customers. And you're basically putting it into a template form where we can prepare it. One of the things I would love to see before you wrap up is if you have like a work product of somebody or an example of somebody that has done this well, and maybe like a before and after, that'll really help to translate it for us where we can actually see it. But while you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, where's the form to sign up? Because I want to do this with you.
I'm working on that right now. I could show you mine. I don't have permission from the companies that I'm working with right now. I've got 3 that are done, but they haven't launched yet. They've got all the behind the scenes work done. They're working on the actual launch. So I can't do that quite yet. I am going to be doing a Bright Talk later on, probably in August, where I'm going to get some permission and actually showcase some of the pivots that have been done. I'm in the process of working through with some individuals there.
Well, when you do that, if you could share that with us, and we'll email that to the audience, because I really want to see that sort of workshop, because I think it helps us to better understand how to apply this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that can be, that'll be certainly helpful. But really, just the steps that I'm talking about it's literally like, okay, just boom, 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 right? Don't over engineer. Keep it simple. Start with one offering, right? Nail down a very defined audience. You can then do this with other audiences for sure, but get one built, get it out there, and test it, and get that moving. And then you can say, okay, what if I took this offer, this pivot offer, which I aimed at, let's just say at this particular industry, how would this change? How would the buyer issues change? Is this offer relevant for industry number 2? What words do they use? Maybe I got to make a couple quick calls. Can I verticalize that a little bit? And then maybe I could drop it in that industry as well. So the more kind of specific you can get, and if you have an industry focus, that's an easy way to launch it in multiple markets. Which is another way to think about this. So that could be a possibility as well. I'm taking another breath, goodness. The other thing that I get asked a lot is, why wouldn't I do a pivot offer that is relevant to everybody? I've had that said to me a few times. And I don't know. I don't think everything is relevant to everybody. I just don't. I mean, we're not selling cereal for the most part. But I do think that this does force, and the feedback I've gotten so far is it forces your organization to look a little bit more closely, because it's not the standard pain points that, quite frankly, we reverse engineer to match up to our product offerings. Now, did that sound jaded or what? But I've been in marketing and sales for so long, and it's like, well, we have these pain points, and this is what our buyers have. And I'm like, take yourself out of that for a moment and think through, like, okay, wait a minute. People are getting laid off. People are being put on furlough. There's an economic challenge. Some industries are winning right now. Many of them are on pause or trying to figure out the way forward. Think through, in your narrow audience, how is that impacting them, and have some conversations to make sure that you're not putting something out there that's totally irrelevant or comes across as totally self-serving. I think that's, I think getting closer, I've looked at what we've been in as an opportunity to step even closer to the buyer, even more than we've been before. And I think that that's always a good thing. And I think there is opportunity in crisis. And so I'm encouraging people to take a harder and deeper look at who you serve and what it is, what value you actually bring to the table, because it's going to look different now. It could potentially look different now. Does that make sense, John?
Absolutely. I think that things are very different today. It's sort of such a cliche, but
Right.
this is an excellent time during a cocooning time that I think is a great time to relook at your offers and who you're offering to, because sometimes a subtle shift can make a major difference.
Exactly. And it's just sort of a click kind of a thing. I want to just add a couple of quick tips. One of which is launch your pivot internally first. Okay. Make sure that whoever's selling for you, all of your marketing team, your service team, anyone that you're working with your large or small, that you launch that internally first, so everybody understands what it is and what it's not. Okay. The other thing I would suggest is create what I call a launch series. So I've done my segmenting. Which of that segment are already existing customers? I'm going to launch to them first. And what I send to them is going to be really personal, right? And then I'm going to go look at my active pipeline contacts. And this is another great way, that I'm using Nimble to kind of help me segment all this and go, okay, so what's in my pipeline? Who are the contacts there that are a fit for this offer? And I'm going to introduce that if it makes sense and it's not going to rattle any of the deals that I already have in the pipe with them, which are probably on hold. God knows I've got a great pipe, but there's a lot of stuff on hold right now. But I have an offering that may make sense now, right? And then I'm going to look at the rest of my prospect pool, and I'm going to say, okay, so these people, message is going to be tweaked a little bit different because they're not connected to me yet. And so think about that series as sort of, tiering it this way, so that you're not just doing a big dump and you're not doing the same thing to everybody. So it's, again, subtle nuances that you want to take through. But for my existing customers, I really want to have, a real introduction. And that might not be the same format and the same message that I'm going to do for my pipeline people or for my prospect pool. So that's another thing to think about as well, because we're kind of micro-targeting here. And I think that's the way to go to get started. So do you want to talk about this part and then we can open for questions, John? Does that make sense?
Sure, you bet. For those of you who are not using Nimble today, I encourage you to try it out. And for those that don't really understand what Nimble is, at the heart of it is really great contact management, because ultimately I think that your relationships are key to your life success, and that essentially most people don't manage their relationships really well. So I think you all need a personal CRM, but if you have a business, you don't really have a great contact platform for the whole company, because Office or G Suite are not good team relationship managers, because you don't have a shared contact database for everybody with integrations with the history of interactions. And the fact that Nimble works across all your platforms and unifies them and then presents you with a cohesive whole that works back where you work is our key to success. So feel free to use the code John40. If you decide to sign up for Nimble, you get 40% off your first 3 months. And we're happy to connect with you on future webinars as well, because learning is growing. Lisa, what's your offer?
So I've got a two-parter. So one, if you just want to talk about your ideas for a pivot, or to just pick my brain a little bit, I'm willing to do that. I'm kind of fascinated with this whole topic. So you can use that link, which will go directly to my calendar, and book a free 30-minute call with me, just to do a little brainstorming or to kind of find out more. But I'm happy to brainstorm some ideas with you on that call. If you want to explore getting help developing your pivot, or a pivot, whether that's the offer plus a message or just the messaging, This link will take you to some in-depth, more detail around what my value prop pivot offering to you is. And if it's of interest to you, you have an opportunity to connect and book something like that. But there's more information on what the value prop pivot is coming from me. So that's the two-parter there.
Okay, so I have the Q&A up here. One of the questions was about pivot offers, and it was from Rich Chapman, and his question was, my concern with pivot offers is anyone who's already bought your product will be mad that they either missed it or have, say, taken the training. For example, we offer a ton of Microsoft software training, and this is always my concern about discounting price. So what Rich is asking about is, if you do come up with a new offer, what happens to the people that purchased before, and how can you create offers that are enticing to new customers, but also potentially reward existing customers?
So first thing is, I look at price as being a very small piece of what your pivot offer has to be. It's certainly a factor, but it's not something I ever lead with. So I'm not saying that a pivot offer is automatically a discount of your existing offers, okay? What I'm suggesting is that you really narrow in. So if it's Microsoft training, is there potentially, let's just say, a Microsoft Teams training that could get somebody up to speed super fast, right? Because I'm sure that there's some in-depth training there. But what if you did an offering quick and dirty for new people who need to get on Teams right now because we're all doing this virtual thing and jump on really fast? That certainly could be helpful because to new customers, right? That could be an incentive for new customers to get on Teams and get this very quick, very efficient, so they're able to do whatever they do and do it at price point A. For your existing customers, you might offer this to them as a way to get team members that have not used this as much. They may already have had the training, but it may not, but it's probably not everybody. So maybe there's an offer, a similar offer for them that gets their internal team who's not had Microsoft training before up to speed on Teams even faster. So, and then price accordingly. Think about the utility of what your pivot offer is going to be, right? And you want to think through, does this make sense for our existing customers? Do I need a different offer for them? Do I need a version of it for them? And don't focus so much on price. It's not price that defines the offer. It's the utility and the helpfulness and the relevancy of that offer, and then look through and go, okay, because we include A, B, and C here, and only A and B here, we'll price accordingly.
I think a good example is how Nimble can be used for a company as the company's CRM, or it could be used by an individual as their personal CRM. And I think that your network is your net worth, that your personal brand and professional network will help you achieve your dreams in life. And I think in applying your concepts, Lisa, that our positioning and offering of Nimble as a personal CRM for a person versus our offering as a business CRM for a company is an example of how you could apply it, because I'm sure that most people who sell CRMs never really think about that an individual person needs a CRM kind of thing. What do you think?
I think that's a great example. And I think even, so the messaging around that could really, kind of focus on, you need to be, in this time, you need to be your own salesperson in a way that you've not had to before. You need your own marketing team in a way that you've had to before. You need a tool that'll help you be all of that. That'll help. You know what I mean? There's lots of things you could do with that. Look, I'm already starting to do pivot messaging with you, John.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, all salespeople are basically given whatever the company's CRM is, and they're basically told to go get them, right? But in most cases, their salespeople aren't given the tools that they need to be successful, like sales intelligence or templated email outreach software, et cetera. And they're sort of left on their own to go and do that. But I think one of the biggest things is when they leave that company, they're not necessarily taking that golden Rolodex of relationships that they built with them effectively, because they try to manage them in LinkedIn and in G Suite and Office. But anyways, I digress. Another question is, I run a boutique black service that is at the high end of service and price. I guess, is that like a Black American Express card? I believe I need to pivot to a different price structure. I'm concerned about damaging my existing brand. So that's an interesting thing. So you're selling at the very, very high end. And let's do an example of that. You're selling at the high end of wine, let's say, right? And you have a high-end brand of wine. So let's say that's Duckhorn. There's a brand called Duckhorn I particularly like in California. And they've come out with a sub-brand that uses the Duckhorn brand, but it's a more affordably priced a wine, if you will. And I think that that's sort of an example of that, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that. I would say that's an example for sure.
Yeah. Without knowing more about your business, Robert, it's hard to, oh, black car service. Thank you. Perfect. So he's running a black car service. And so those are those nice town cars that you can hire. They have somebody in a suit that has your name at the airport to pick you up. And what he's trying to do is potentially pivot without damaging the brand. So Lisa, what do you think? You got some ideas for him?
Oh, wow. So I use black car services. I love those. So what could we do? What could we do? So I think what might be interesting there, and I don't know anything about your business, so I'm completely winging it here. I'd be interested, so somebody like me who travels a lot, and I'm either using a black car service or I'm renting a car. I'm not somebody who's going to kind of just jump into a random, taxi or random Uber, whatever. I'm a woman and I travel alone a lot. So for a black car service like that, now I'm in a position where I don't necessarily want to get on a plane either. Are there any opportunities for you to do kind of longer haul black car services options for individuals? Maybe in some selected areas, some selected regions or geographies where it makes sense, and to offer that.
Well, I think you're onto something there, Lisa, because think about it. I am uncomfortable getting inside a random Uber these days because I don't know if somebody has gotten in that car who just, was infected and they were breathing and there were droplets and blah, blah, blah. But you could utilize the current situation to address people's fear of and wanting a more safer ride and address that in that way. But it's not necessarily dealing with the price issue. But I think those are good examples of how you might address that. Another question was, do you feel like creating landing pages, et cetera, is a necessary tool? Can the offer be created and delivered without the web stuff or mandatory? And I actually answered Jeff's question here. And my feeling is this: there's only 8 hours in the day and you can only get in front of so many people. Well, in reality, for an entrepreneur, it might be 16. But the reality is that you're limited by how many people you can get in front of. And the value of the web is that you can walk in your customer's digital footprint, add value to the conversation, become a trusted advisor, so that when they consider you, they will come to your webpage and fill out forms that enable you to sell your offer at scale, whether it is a one-to-one offer or whether you package that up into a platform or product that they can self-consume, like I did with Goldmine and Nimble. And so in my opinion, almost anybody benefits from web and social based inspiration and education and landing pages that collect people's info for further follow-up. What do you think, Lisa?
I totally agree. I also think it's a credibility stamp as well. I think, people are also, trying to beware of, getting taken right now too. The thing is, it's really easy these days, to do a WordPress landing page. There are all kinds of templates. You could, sign up for Thrive Themes and pull one of theirs and throw your own colors in it. And I mean, it's really, really easy. Mine was done in less than a day. And that's something to think about. There are lots of tools that are really affordable and really simple. And so from that perspective, yeah, I think you do need to do it. I really do. I mean, at the end of the day, whether somebody buys something off the internet directly or not, you want to get out to the largest audience that you can that's relevant to this offer, and it's a tool to help you get there.
One of the things, Lisa, when you say credibility, when people engage with you, especially with businesses, let's say like yours, Lisa, where you are a persona and people hire you to work with you. I'm sure you have a team, but
Yep.
in many cases, it's the Lisa show. Because you are the expert, that you're selling yourself as the expert. So before they're going to work with you, Lisa, they're going to Google you. And one of the things I like to share with the people that I speak to is one of the easiest ways to rank better on Google is to build a Wikipedia page for yourself. Anybody can do it, and you can get people to help you. The best thing to do is to cite things and the link to outside things to support who you are and what you're about. But if you don't have a Wikipedia page today, I highly encourage you to do so. It'll help you Google rankings, and also it'll help you to generate your own narrative. Lisa, do you have one?
I don't, and I should do that. That's great. Now that's my weekend project. I love it. I know I don't.
Awesome. And then another question was, John, does Nimble allow you to easily separate your personal and business CRM instances? Nimble, great question, Wayne. Thank you. Nimble enables you to separate your personal and business contacts, but we don't have separate instances built yet, so that you could essentially open up let's say you're doing an Acme company that sold toner, and another company that essentially did consulting, and you want to keep them absolutely separate. They'd all be pulled into one place. But the thing that I would want to say is that business is personal, life is personal. People buy from people they like, know, and trust. And what I find is that my business contacts become my personal contacts, and they bleed back and forth. And so I wouldn't necessarily worry about separating them, because Nimble has great segmentation. You want to add anything on that, Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your point. I also think the fact that you can segment in Nimble is a great thing. So if I had personal contacts that I definitely didn't want, to have my business stuff named at, I would just create a segment and put them in there. You know what I mean? So I have the option of taking them out if I want to.
Yeah, one of the things I do want to say is that we will be delivering content privacy in very short order here, and it will have group permission rights with it as well. So if you wanted to build some personal contacts and then maybe share that with your executive admin or whatever, there are all kinds of possibilities to do that in the future. There's a question from Marty. He said, did you say Thrive themes, Lisa?
Yeah, I did.
What is that?
THRIVE themes. You can use it with WordPress. They have all kinds of templatized stuff there to help build pages. And I've used it in the past, and that was an easy way to pull a template and then basically customize it. So a quick and dirty way to get a professional looking landing page. All you have to apply is kind of your color schemes, your logo, your fonts, that kind of stuff, but that the actual page design is done.
And for those of you who haven't messed with WordPress before, it is easy and easy to get deep quick. And even though I have a computer science degree and background in computers going back farther than I want to even share, I do know what DOS is. But I actually hired a professional to help my wife with her page, and they're reasonable. You can find reasonable people to do WordPress stuff. So you could definitely do both. So with that, I think that we've covered all of the questions, Lisa. And I just want to say, Lisa, that I really dug your presentation. Can you go to the last slide? I think it has our contact info. I want to encourage everybody to reach out to Lisa and myself, connect with us. That's why we're here. We do this because we dig doing it. Like I said in the beginning, if I did say it, maybe I didn't, is I think that we're on this planet to grow. I say it more personally by we're on this planet to grow our souls. And we do that best by helping other people grow theirs. So when you hear Lisa or myself, when we share our thoughts and words, we do it because we are passionate about serving others. That service is the new sales. And so, Lisa, I know you practice that.
Oh,
If you want my email, it's john@nimble.com. Feel free to reach out on whatever channel is appropriate for you, and let us know how we can help you grow. Lisa, why don't you take us away with some parting thoughts?
what I think you need to consider right now is every single one of us needs help right now in one way or another. So you can think about it in terms of your business. You can also think about it in terms of your colleague's business. You know, I think reaching a hand out. I mean, I came up with this value prop pivot only because I was looking to see how I could be helpful to other people in my community. And I thought this would be an area, and then halfway through it, somebody said, "Are you offering this as like a real offer?" And I'm thinking, oh, that was not the impetus for it. It was just because I wanted to be useful to others that I knew were having challenges, because this just happens to be a skill I've got. So think about that. Think about how you can reach out and help those next to you, in front of you, in back of you, as well as your prospects and your customers.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have an amazing rest of your day, and be well, be safe. Thank you, Lisa.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, John.